What's up, everybody? So check this out. Cheryl sent me a shirt. She's a YouTuber, watches Witch in the Working all the time. Does a lot, almost all the lives and everything. Awesomeness. She sent this shirt. Harm none, but take no shit. Love it. Love it. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Definitely going to be wearing that around town. Especially to the next Witchcraft festival. Can't wait. So, let's get started. So, what's up, everybody? Blessed be. My name is Mannun, and you are watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. Please visit me on my other platforms as well, including Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, all linked down in the description below. The full script of this video and most of the others is available on my Patreon account for download if desired. To build your Witch in the Working Book of Shadows, you can pull that off. Also, please visit my Shopify store listed in the description below to get your Witch in the Working shirts, mugs, stickers, bags, beanies, or what have you. So once a week at the very least, most of the time even more, I get a question sometimes in the comments of a video and sometimes back channel, how do I find a coven? And this question is as easy to answer as how do I find the right person for a relationship? The bottom line is there is no one place to find that perfect Mod Podge of individuals to come together in harmony and synchronization to perform one of the most mysterious yet powerful acts known to man through the centuries. I wish there was a simple enough answer to this question, like some way I could just tell you, hey, well, go to this website and sign up and you'll definitely get a coven, or go to your local witch's world and ask the manager to talk to the representative about covens for the rest of us, but this just doesn't exist. Do we have a sorting hat like in Harry Potter? That would be cool, but no go. In fact, the process is a lot more complicated in our witchy world, but I have to say that by the time the right witch finds the right coven, that process is much more magical than any sorting hat in Harry Potter. So how do you find a coven? Hopefully this video can help answer a few questions and point you in the right direction. Without further ado, you know what's coming up. To roll the intro. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get started with talking about two important categories that all of us witches and Wiccans fall into, regardless of anything else that makes us who we are walking upon the surface of this big blue marble. These two categories are Solitaire and Coven workers. Solitaire witches prefer to work alone and are sort of the lone ranger or rebels of the craft, so to speak. They don't want to deal with the hassles or occasional drama that can occur amongst the synchronicity of multiple peoples. This drama, by the way, has nothing to do with witchcraft, by the way, most of the time anyhow. I've been working with a coven for 31 years, and I can honestly say that any drama that has or would arise is not because of magical or witchery miscommunications or circumstances. No. 100% of the time, it has to do with mundane issues and complications or poor communication between two or more coveners. This is unavoidable with any group of people that spend time together after a while. Welcome to the human race. We like to think we as witches are above and beyond the humdrum of day-to-day living, but the fact is we all have our shortcomings and stresses too. We just have a little extra advantage to help get through some of our issues called magic. Some have prayer, but I like magic better because with magic, you're in the driver's seat controlling each and every turn, whereas with prayer, you hand the wheel over to faith and hope for the best someone or something is listening. Downfall to being a solitaire is that you have no one to share anything with and to help if you wish to participate and strengthen numbers your magic. Also, you have no one to learn with and to experience some of the most amazing experiences that occur on this path of mystery and excitement around every corner. Sometimes it takes this driving force of others to push you above and beyond your magical limitations that you may otherwise hit a brick wall and become complacent in your magical life and workings. This just doesn't happen when you're working in a coven. Things never get boring and this proverbial brick wall just doesn't exist. It's more of a brick stepping stone that's used as a tool tool instead of a hindrance to help elevate you to your magical goals and wishes. Which brings us to our second category, coven workers. This brings us to the question, what is a coven? A coven is a group of witches or Wiccans that work with a group of other witches in order to learn, communicate, converge, inspire, celebrate, and most of the time perform spells and rituals, all in the name of the god and goddess of this amazing religion and practice. Coven is more than this, however. It always starts off as a great group of friends that are like-minded and have some of the same magical goals and interests. But naturally, after some time, this gaggle of friends ends up becoming more like a family. Many witches will call their coven their chosen family as opposed to their family they were born into without any control whatsoever. I mean, let's face it, for some of us, our blood families are a crapshoot of either awesome or this will do, or worse yet, dysfunction at its craziest. Again, it's the luck of the draw of who and where we're born into. That's life, and it's up to you to change it if you don't like it. Regardless, this group of like-minded friends and family will come together regularly and celebrate our holidays or full moons and practice magic usually at least once a month, but most of the time more often than that. So there are situations where, for instance, a Unitarian Universalist church may set up a Wicca 101 course that may happen regularly, where a group of like-minded people will come together and celebrate a Sabbath or even participate in a certain topic on magic or something pagan-based. This is not a coven, and most UU churches will emphatically state this in their opening dialogue addressing the people gathered, so there's no confusion or misleadings, so to speak. A coven is more consistent and organized as far as attendance is concerned, in that you have a set number of people and the same people are present each time you have a circle. Also, most of the time a coven is situated in a more intimate environment than a random group gathering, which allows for energies to meld together amongst the coven participants. Another situation which is extremely rare, and we won't get into it in this episode, is if you happen to be part of a hereditary witch family, which in this case, things are different, but depending on the situation, nonetheless, this could still put you in the category of solitaire or a coven, depending on how your family practices, which usually, in more cases than not, the family practices solitaire amongst each other and simply passes down the magic omens and traditions that circulate through the bloodline individually. For more information on solitaire versus covens, please see my video on the subject listed here, and also in the link down below. Covens of witches have been around for centuries, though this subject is a very gray area and at times is challenged by the historical communities. Throughout the centuries, though, many witches from all different parts of Europe, for instance, have claimed to work with a group of other witches to celebrate and practice magic on any given date, but especially around full moons. Like I mentioned, some historical communities challenge this idea, but fact is, witches from Spain, Italy, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, etc., all over Europe, basically, when questioned throughout the years, have all claimed the similarity. In my eyes, this to me means it most likely is true. And let's not forget Gerald Gardner himself, our founding father of the rebirth of witchcraft to the masses, who claims that he himself stumbled upon an existing coven of witches who ultimately initiated him into their ranks as one of their own. This coven, the New Forest Coven, claimed to be from a long line of witches and other covens splattered throughout England and its surrounding countries. No coincidence or figment of the imagination in my book. Covens totally existed and still do, obviously. The evidence of this is just too great, in my opinion, to not justify a healthy existence of witch covens throughout history. So, there are different types of covens as well. Some covens, especially traditional covens, that being, for instance, Gardnerian, Alexandrian, Georgian, Minoan, Blue Star, to name a few, are essentially focused in teaching a specific mystery of a sort. I like to call this type of coven a growth or learning coven. Joining a coven like this, you will be learning certain mysteries from that group that are usually oath-bound in nature, as well as specific ritual structure and spell workings that are kept within the confines of the circle, not to be discussed outside of the circle walls. In joining a coven of this nature, it's always an intense journey, and homework is a large part of your learning process. A lot of path workings, discovery exercises, and occult teachings from all over the spectrum of the magical practices that have been discovered and practiced over the centuries are taught and put into practice in covens of this nature. Growth covens will always have a priest and or priestess who directs the focus on any given subject that may or may not be part of a driven curriculum. Another type of coven, which unfortunately I believe is more popular than the former I just talked about, are covens that focus on basically social gatherings. This type of coven gathers together basically to just kind of hang out. Maybe someone will bring something interesting to light that ensues in a discussion or debate, or maybe just to gather and do a ritual, an esbit or a sabbat. They may take turns acting out the role of priest and or priestess, or even have a set priest or priestess. It could go either way. Usually this type of coven, which I like to call a club coven, is sort of exactly that. A sort of social club for like-minded peoples of the occult that are more drawn to the coven as a gathering to share and communicate than to learn and grow. This is a more laid-back scenario, as there's usually no foundation to be bound to, such as a growth coven may require. Just about 100% of the time, a club coven will be an eclectic group of people, meaning that it is not a traditional background of any sorts, but a modge-podge of favorite rituals and spell pieces extracted and utilized from the plethora of craft books on the market today. For more information on traditional versus eclectic witches, see this video up here and also listed down in the description below. The thing to take away from the explanation of a club coven is that, again, this type of coven will be a set of group peoples that can come together and share their interests, beliefs, concerns, and practices of the craft. This is mainly the two types of covens that exist in my eyes anyways. If anyone knows of another type besides a growth or a club coven, please let us know in the comments below. So, how do you get started on the hopefully not too long of a journey locating a coven of your choosing? This is where it can definitely be a journey, and to be honest, you may be in a situation, especially if you live in the so-called Bible Belt of a particular state, where you just don't have any covens in your immediate area. What's important though is that you do your best to weed that unfortunate conclusion out if possible. One of the first things you should do is locate your local Unitarian Universalist churches in the area. Many times these churches will have a local pagan faction that is a great starting point for locating a coven. Getting your foot in the door is the key in this situation. Go to the gatherings, make friends, talk to people, offer your help, and really become a team player. In the end, after time and communication has ensued, you may end up finding there is a coven nearby that you can start talking to those people and see if they have any openings and are possibly accepting participants. Always approach with a very open mind and always be eager to want to learn and share. One thing is for sure, big egos are never ever welcome in a coven, so leave any egotistical crapola at the door when you leave your dwelling, because a shitty ego is going to get you nowhere really fast. Also, be ready to have to commute to a possible coven. Depending on your perfect circumstance, it's not unheard of to drive 2 or 3 hours to your coven gathering. Usually it's once or twice a month, and it can be a pain in the ass, but not unheard of to be able to be part of something that can change your life. I myself travel 2.5 hours each way, 5 hours total every month, sometimes twice a month, to circle with my coven. It's taken some getting used to, seeing that after 30 years I've had my coveners come to me at my coven instead, but life changes and we do what we have to do. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just expressing that if you have to travel a bit, you may need to weigh out the pros and cons of the drive for the experience, and I've known many to have to make this sacrifice. I finally worked out a great scenario where one of my coveners lives halfway between my destination coven instead, so now I can drive to her house an hour away and she carpools the two of us the rest of the way, so it ultimately works out great. Another way to hook up with a coven is to do some research and locate any craft stores in your area. If you can find one of these, then you got a good foot in the door as to finding out where there might be some local covens of interest. These shop owners usually have their finger on the pulse of any pagan community gatherings and goings-ons that they're most always willing to share, especially if it involves their store and an opportunity to help make a living. These stores will sometimes even have a bulletin board with postings of local events that are happening, and even at times, though rare, have a flyer from a coven looking for potential members. Another resource we have at our fingertips is the internet. Obviously, you're going to end up using Google or Bing or some kind of search engine to search for your local UU church or shop. Take it a step further. Why not try to just see what else is out there in the area? Maybe even just Google local pagan gatherings near, for instance, Manchester, New Hampshire, or whatever city you live in. Maybe even try doing this same search, but make the city a nearby metropolis. I think I'm using that right, a larger city in your state. You'll likely get better results in this manner. Since we're on the internet, it doesn't hurt to utilize social media as another tool in your treasure hunt for that perfect coven. Facebook is a great tool considering its mass and never-ending Wicca, witchcraft, and pagan groups that are available to the public. Some are private and others are public. Regardless, try and do a search for a coven on Facebook. Literally type in Wicca groups in whatever metropolis you're located near and see what pops up. Jump on some of these groups and ask around if there are any covens in the nearby area. You're bound to get some answers, even if it's not for a coven exactly. Maybe someone will mention a gathering of some sort that you can attend and will at least get your foot in the door with like-minded peoples. Again, this may have to happen in baby steps. You may not find that glorious coven right away. It may take a series of stepping stones to get to your prize. I have a few links in the description below that will take you to a good starting place. One is if you wish to locate an eclectic group, and the other is listed if you're interested in a traditional group. Check them out and see where it goes as well. These links are very general though, and hit or miss because they're links for nationwide and not location specific. Your truly best bet is to follow the instructions that I just talked about and mentioned earlier, which we will break down here and make brief and easy. 1. Find a UU church and ask if they have a pagan-based services. 2. Google for local Wicca shops and go check out those shops. Step inside them. Hey, buy a couple of things if you need to, whatever. But it's good to know these shops because the people there most likely have their pulse on the community. Or number 3, social media, Facebook groups. Okay. So what if you do hit the jackpot and find that coven you've been hunting down, or at least warranted yourself an interview or a meeting or a gathering by a coven or like-minded group? This is where it can be a little dangerous and sketchy and should be treated no different than going on a blind date. Are the people safe? What are their intentions? How did this coven get established? Is this the kind of coven I want? A growth coven or a club coven? Is this a cult? This is where you as a seeker need to keep your radar at full power and your intuition sharpened to a fine point. It's your job to scrutinize and question these people just as much as they're going to do the same to you. Come up ahead of time with a list of questions you would like to ask these people you're about to commit yourself to. What do they expect from you? Are there fees involved in joining or maintaining your presence in this group? Are there any sex offenders in the group? Is there drug use in the group? How often are you expected to attend and at what days and time frames? Is there any assignments and homework to be done? Is this a secret coven, or is it okay to tell others you're part of this coven? Do you celebrate the Sabbats and Esbits, and if so, is it on the exact date, or can it be fudged to accommodate the weekend circles, for instance? I mean, you get the drift. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and if the people you're working with or interviewing with, whatever, get annoyed with you asking these questions, I recommend you run for the hills, because they're most likely hiding something, and it's usually a pretty dark secret. Nowadays, the internet is everything, and of course, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of online covens. These are okay too, but by no means are these types of covens, regardless of growth or club coven, are as fruitful and beneficial as meeting in real life coven. There is no replacement for in-person energy and companionship. I shouldn't even have to explain this. It's common sense. There is no replacement of human interaction in circumstances like covens and coven work. And to be honest, in many things in general, it's that way in life, period. I just think meeting in person and all that is so much more fruitful than stuff that's online. I mean, we've all been in a situation where we've been through texts and you text something and you mean it one way, but it comes out another because you're not physically there, expressing with your bodily, your body position and everything else, and your passion involved with it. I hate that when you're texting. But anyway, unfortunately, because of social media's double-edged sword effect, you have to be extremely careful you don't get mixed up with a cult. Some tips that you might be dipping your toes into the wrong pool are as follows. The group is focused on a living leader to whom members seem to display excessively zealous, unquestioning commitment. The group is occupied with bringing in new members. The group is preoccupied with making money. Questioning doubt and dissent are discouraged or even punished. Mind-numbing techniques such as meditation, chanting, speaking in tongues, denunciation sessions, debilitating work routines are used to suppress doubts about the group and its leaders. The leadership dictates sometimes in great detail how members should think, act, and feel. For example, members must get permission from leaders to date, change jobs, get married. Leaders may prescribe what types of clothes to wear, where to live, how to discipline children, and so forth. The group is elitist, claiming a special exalted status for itself, its leaders and members. For example, the leader is considered the Messiah or an avatar. The group and/or the leader has a special mission to save humanity. The group has a polarized us versus them mentality, which causes conflict with wider society. The group's leader is not accountable to any authorities, as are, for example, military commanders and ministers, priests, monks, and rabbis of the mainstream denominations. The group teaches or implies that its supposedly exalted ends justify means that members would have considered unethical before joining the group, for example, collecting money for bogus charities. The leadership induces guilt feelings in members in order to control them. Members' subservience to the group causes them to cut ties with family and friends and to give up personal goals and activities that were of interest before joining the group. Members are expected to devote inordinate amounts of time to the group. Members are encouraged or required to live and/or socialize only with other group members. It's very easy in this day and age to get wrapped up in cult groups, and there are a ton out there, so tread carefully. Be very careful, especially if a coven asks for large amounts of money to support their existence, especially if that money is flowing through and filtered through one person. Unfortunately, with social media in the mix nowadays, it's given predators of all types an easy platform with a lot of victims. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Witch Into Working. I hope this episode will assist you in locating and finding a coven. Be patient and don't be too anxious to jump on the first bandwagon you see unless you really feel like it's the right fit for you. Do you have any other suggestions I may have missed on how to find a coven? Let us all know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to ring that little bell to be reminded of any future exciting episodes to come. I love you guys and gals. Blessed be.